sure he likes me and I need to make sure we're getting along. I'm kind of observing this dialogue rather than being in that dialogue. So, as you'll see
Ah,
for those of you that haven't seen that presentation yet, rapport is the most effective if part of me is having to wonder if I'm matching you or if you're matching me. That it just becomes
yeah, I'm
this
definitely.
it becomes this process rather than just this thing that I'm doing at you.
Yeah, now I'm going to be leaving that link in all the descriptions and all the marketing from here on out. I'm going to be leaving that link. That was a really good speech. That really did open my eyes up. And I don't say that often.
Oh, thank you.
You know, for the most part, when I talk to a lot of people, I usually just say, "Oh, you did a good job." But that and I love unique perspectives, and I love, I guess, things that reshift and redefine things for me. 'Cause it always just betters me as a person, as a writer, as a creator, and you know, and it broadens my perspective, and that really, really did help me. And I don't mean that to sound, you know, I'm not trying to kiss no bums over here, but I was like, oh wow, I was like, it really did kind of open my eyes a little bit, like almost to the point where I was disappointed in myself that I didn't realize that first. So thank you. So I had a little self.
Oh, well, thank you for that.
A little. Yeah, a little self-upset, you know, but that's all your fault. It's
Oh, I
okay.
mean, that's that benefit of, I mean, even to look at a personal change. Sometimes when there's a major change that we wish to resolve of our own, there's a mistake that people make sometimes to be on the other side of it and almost criticizing themselves, putting down where they were. Oh, I can't believe I used to do that. I can't believe I used to think that way. It's instead to shift that mindset to go, oh, cool, I get to do that better now. I get to do that on purpose now. I get to create this specific outcome instead.
Huh. Yeah. You're too smart for your own good. Don't you know? I bet you've heard that a few times.
Hey, work
So,
smart. We should do
so
something with that.
you know, they say work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
That's what telling in the army. That and you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That was another one.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, no
I
comment
flash
on that
back
one,
to what was it, a Steve Martin line when he was doing stand up primarily of turns out you can't stand in court and say, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I did not know murder was illegal. So so instead do things from the ethical perspective, do things with intention, do things with purpose. Is my point of view.
Just a nice smooth segue over. Talking about stand-up comedy, I saw Robin Williams stand-up. I don't know. I got like this weird hunkering just to watch a Robin Williams stand-up, and I was surprised at how adult-themed he was and how funny he was.
Oh yes.
You know, I'm used to seeing him in like all these like you know, made for youth, made for young kids, and movies like that, Flubber and stuff like that. Like what I grew up watching. And it was so funny, and it was so embarrassing because I let my kids watch it with me at first.
At first.
I was like, oh, yeah. But I mean, all I did is I put them in their room with their toys, and I was like, I'm gonna keep watching this though. But man, I love a good writer. That's why I've always been a huge fan of that, of a good writer. And we read a lot of your work too with your Work Smart business book. And,
Well, I mean, to pause for a moment there on the Robin Williams example. Now, this may be, I forget. Let me frame this properly in case I'm incorrect, but I'll modify it so we'll have a hit either way. That there's something that was either explained to me about Robin Williams in terms of his career path, or something that someone inferred by looking at his career path. So whether this was a direct quote or someone's assumption based on his work, it's something we can model in terms of business. That if you look at the shape of the movies that he did, clearly he wasn't always going for the blockbuster movie. Sometimes it was just, here's something that he was interested in doing, or here was some sort of passion project that he really fought to be a part of. And to look at some of the career path, the remake of Flubber, did not become a huge commercial success, but that movie was done just prior to him then going into the movie Patch Adams. So by having that opportunity that he was able to do that role, yes, the acting was a business, clearly, get paid for it, and there were families out there that I'm sure enjoyed the movie. And there was a benefit to that, but at the same time, that got him back into all the physical comedy that was necessary to play the doctor/clown in Patch Adams. So it's to always look at, again, back to that point we kind of started on about the Troy McClure effect around to take an asset and go, how do I leverage that to something else? Which, again, whether that was a direct quote from an interview or whether that was just someone's assumption looking at his work, it's an interesting thing to model to go, how do I take what I'm currently doing and bring it to a different audience? What set of skills? I mean, I have an aspect of being a comedy junkie, even though I'm not necessarily the comedian. I fall asleep in my car if music's playing, so that keeps me up. Though it's the aspect of looking at, my career about 15 years ago was working in professional theater, and I wasn't acting, I wasn't directing, I wasn't designing. I was the behind the scenes guy, doing all the tracking of the moving scenery, all the automated machinery that makes the scene changes work, dealing with creative personalities, which sometimes that was the best psychological training I could have had, and to look at this entire thing of going, how do we replicate a system, the same quality production 8 times a week for several months on end, and the production to always maintain the integrity of the quality, whether it was the very last performance, whether it was the 9 a.m. student matinee. So to look at everything as being a system and to be able to refine it in such a way, and to look at what we're currently doing, what's working now, and how do I replicate this? How do I make this a streamlined thing that runs on its own? So now I can spend my time and efforts doing bigger things to reach a much bigger audience.
Huh. See, man, there's not a lot of references I could throw out there that I would have you stumped. I've been trying. I threw out the Robin Williams. I'm not running out of things.
Professional sports.
Right,
I'll be out.
Oh yeah, I'm a big mixed martial arts fanatic.
I will do, but I will
trained,
not watch.
You're a fan?
No, I said out. I will do the sport, which I'm sure is not the right term, but I will not watch the sport. So it's the whole, this team. You lost me.
Yeah, I was like that with. There's a lot of sports that I enjoy participating rather than spectating. And I hate to say it, America's favorite pastime, baseball. I love to play baseball. I remember going to it's called the Staten Island Yankees back on Staten Island, New York. They have a little stadium out there. It's like a farm system for the actual Yankees. And we used to watch a guy named Elvis Corporage. And, shout out to Elvis Corporage, wherever he is. I don't know what his situation still is. But that was years and years ago when I was a kid. And we got his autograph after the game. And my dad looked at me. He goes, "So what did you think of your first baseball game?" I was like, "Oh, man, that was drug on." Like, that went out for a while. But it was fun and exciting to be there. But, I guess I was a kid. I had to go try it again. I watched my son play baseball, and I enjoy that more. So I don't know. Who knows? I might just be getting older. I was too young then. The age limit might have just not been on point. So there's something that I spoke to a lot of my partners and a lot of my following, and they all want to know, what is the steps to hypnotism? Like, is there a specific step, a certain checklist you have to follow in order to hypnotize somebody? Now, I'm scared that you'll give such an accurate answer that I might end up getting hypnotized by my wife to take out the trash, or cook that night, or not just argue, because I feel like that's my favorite pastime right there, is just argue with my wife and pick a fight with her, and then she's way smarter than I am. But what is the steps and process to hypnotism or mental? I don't know the correct terms to it, so I don't want to sound ignorant, because you are way smarter than I am. But what are the steps? What is your checklist? What's the process?
Well, right, and it's where I share in the smaller community of people who do the work that I do, which a friend of mine loves to throw out the statistic that there are more social workers in the city of Chicago than there are working hypnotists worldwide. We're a rather small community, and to look at, I'd give you a bit of a backstory to this before I actually get into the answer, which was that when I got my start as a hypnotist, I went to this local event of people in the community, and it was just kind of a nice networking event, get to know the local community, and it's where the worst business advice I ever got is probably what made me an instant success at it, that I was hearing, it's going to be slow your first year. People won't come see someone who doesn't have testimonials, and you don't have any referral sources, because I kind of just opened up an office after quite a bit of substantial training and preparation, and then jumped in with the mindset of, I'm going to make this work. And I was hearing the negative dialogue wasn't coming from a place of competition or anything of that nature, nothing malice. Instead, it was a place of genuine concern, because that's what their experience was. And I just refused to buy into that premise. And I bring that up because it's where, over time, in order to grow up the business that I'm now running, I started to spend just as much time in the business and the advertising and the marketing world as I was with the hypnosis community too. And the amazing discovery was that it was basically the same strategy. It was basically the same technique. We were always communicating, again, effectively towards a specific outcome. So it's where there's a very simple formula inside of the hypnotic process, which may sound slightly familiar to the business world. Of the first step would be setting mental expectancy, which is that in a moment we're going to do this, and when we do this, here's what the result's probably going to be. And then from there, we're transitioning to the present tense now of now we're doing it. And as we're now doing it, here's the experience of what's happening as we're doing it. And the third phase is that process of actually leading in deeper into the experience of, as we would phrase it, as. So I'd kind of piggyback these three segments with standard language. Phase one, in a moment. Phase two, now. Phase three, as. Which probably sounds very familiar to the business people in the audience of tell them what you're going to tell them what you told them. So it's to recognize that our definition of hypnosis nowadays, full credit goes to a practitioner who lived about 50 years ago. His son is now alive and well. Dave Ellman was an early, actually vaudeville performer who was a modern pioneer of hypnosis. That he was hosting a radio program, and one time his radio program was all about people coming on and demonstrating a hobby. And imagine the skill necessary to narrate what the hobby was. And the legend goes that a hypnotist came on to do a demonstration, and the hypnotist was not succeeding. And the late great Dave Ellman goes, "Do you think these people are hypnotized so well they'd respond to me?" And he just took over the demonstration. And it's his wife going, "You were too good at that." Which in the vaudeville area, they had a whole bunch of skills. Which his legacy goes back to several doctors watching one of his comedy performances and going, there's a way that you're doing this that we can benefit from. And Dave Ellman's legacy was that he was then teaching the medical community. He was the one, quote, layperson in the room teaching the doctors how to use hypnosis. I bring that up in this context, though, because, again, that mental expectancy, the foot in the door, Dave Ellman's definition classically was that bypassing of the critical faculty of the mind, which that's a lot of technical jargon. What it basically means is that automatic response in spite of those things we're already aware of. So this is something that we do on our own all the time. You're driving in a car, you're thinking of everything other than driving a car, you still end up where you'd like to go. You're watching a movie, you know everything up there is fiction, they're actors playing dress up and pretending, and yet we still get swept up in the story. But look at the nature of the issues that people would often seek out the help of a hypnotist to resolve. That this is a big category I work with, here's the executive that, his name is on the payroll stubs of the company, and he is clearly the CEO of this business, and yet when he's standing up to speak to his staff, he's got that fear of public speaking. His voice is stammering, he's shaking, and he's nervous. So in spite of all the conscious awareness that he clearly has, some other mental process is going on. Here's the person who knows those cigarettes are killing them slowly, and yet they just bought a carton because they're cheaper that way. So it's where to look at these categories and highlight, it's not that I'm hypnotizing you to create a change, it's that we're dehypnotizing this pattern of belief structure that just doesn't need to be there anymore. So it's that foot in the door. It's that little bit of the opening wedge, which the common language in my world is that we're either fatiguing the nervous system or overloading the nervous system. So to, again, apply that to a everyday example, there's always some level of hypnotic communication inside of what we do. Back to what we started talking about here, the rapport. It comes back to what is it that people do naturally and how do we model that in an intentional way to get the mind into that, what we used to call suggestibility, which some people would link that word to gullibility. It's time to update that word. I talk about it as being that heightened receptivity of the mind, or getting into this process of accelerated learning, the state-based learning, that if we are in that focused state of mind at the time of learning something, we're more likely to retain it when it's time to put it into use if we can replicate that same in-the-zone kind of peak performance state of mind. So the basic formula is, again, that mental expectancy, actually doing the process, and then using that to transition deeper into that communication.
Huh. That sounds tedious.
At its core, the beauty of it is at its core, it's a very simple formula. And from that, from the years of having worked with so many people, I'm someone who's a bit of a education junkie, continuing my own learning.